Imagine you're sleeping and then in the middle of the night, you're violently shaken by a ghostly presence pleading for your help. So this happened to Kristie. Kristie Robinet predicted her grandmother's death when she was only 3 years old, and when she was 8 years old, the spirit of her deceased grandfather actually told her that she was going to be kidnapped. So he actually came and visited Kristie and told her that you shouldn't be going out at that time because there's going to be some people around that is going to kidnap you. So she predicted all that and it actually came true. And also, Kristie comes from a very religious family, and since she was very religious, you know, in Christianity, like, it's always told that, like, witches and all that, like, they're known to be bad things, right? So Kristie, for a very long time, thought that she was a cursed person. But then until one day she figured out that, you know what, like, I'm gonna use my powers for good, and I will be trying my best to help those who are in need. So without further ado, let's get into the story. This is a case that we'll be talking about in Ashley Howell's case, which was kind of solved by Kristie Robinet. 2004, Ashley Lynn Howell was living in Columbus, Ohio. She was working as an exotic dancer at a club called Dockside Dock, I think. She has been dating this guy called Robert, and he is 22 years old, and his full name is Robert McMichael. The relationship quickly turned really violent, and it was just really toxic. In June 16 in 2004, Ashley was at a pool with a friend. Ashley has been receiving a lot of threatening messages from Robert, and in those messages, basically what Robert was doing, he was sending her threatening messages that he was going to kill her. After leaving her friend's pool, she ends up going back to the apartment. There was this huge argument that started between her and Robert. The argument turned really violent, and Ashley actually filed a police report claiming that Robert had physically assaulted her. But at that time, the medical offers, they were like, do you need any help? Can we send you any kind of medical help? She was like, no, it's fine, but I just had to tell someone that I'm getting threatening messages and like I've been assaulted. She then started packing up her things, and she asked her friend if she could actually come over to her friend's house to stay for a few days, because she didn't really want to stay with Robert anymore, because obviously he did threaten to kill her and all that. So after all that, she didn't really feel safe. She didn't really think that it would be okay to live with Robert. Any sensible person with a sensible mind would know that. Anyways, after waiting for Ashley for like 2 to 3 hours, her friend really couldn't get any kind of contact with Ashley. So what her friend does is she actually contacts her family, and her family starts searching for her. Eventually, Ashley's family actually reported her missing after 24 hours. She didn't show up to work. No one could get into contact with her, and her family got worried. So what her family does is they actually end up filing a missing persons report. Police actually ends up searching up Ashley's apartment, but they couldn't really find anything except for her 1995 Bonneville. Her Bonneville sedan was actually missing. So for like 1 month, no one really knows where Ashley is, who she is with, and literally the police are actually kind of giving up hope at this point, because they're like, honestly, like, there's no, like, even with Robert, like, the case isn't really linked with Robert, right? And not just that, on top of that, she was a stripper, right? So I don't think, like, back in that time in 2004, police were like even looking for her like that. After looking for her like a whole month, after a month, they actually found Ashley's car in an abandoned parking lot. Her family actually suspected that her boyfriend had something to do with Ashley's disappearance. So Ashley and her boyfriend Robert didn't really live together, but he did stay there for a few days. Like, whenever he wanted something, like, he would just stay there for a few days, but like they weren't really a living couple. So obviously, with no evidence or whatsoever, the police ends up, case kind of gets cold, because, like, you know, there's no evidence or whatsoever. So the police sort of gives up. They're like, okay, fine, like, it's literally impossible to find Ashley, and there's no evidence linked to Robert of Ashley's disappearance. So they're like, okay, fine, like, she's gone. It is what it is. It's done. So basically, what the police and the family did, yeah, they came together and they put up a reward of $100,000. Whoever finds Ashley Howley they will be getting the rewards. Any kind of information, like even if it's like, oh, Ashley is like right there, she's living there, they'd be like, okay, fine, take the money, like it's yours, we're gonna go see our daughter. Until in 2005, there was a medium called Kristie Robinet. She lived in Detroit, Michigan. Basically, she was shaken violently, and obviously because of the way she was shaken violently, she woke up and suddenly she saw a blonde spirit, and a blonde spirit was actually asking for her help. And about Kristie could actually communicate and speak with the dead people since she was like 3 years old. At the age of 3, she actually predicted that her grandmother was actually going to die, and at the age of 8, her grandfather actually came up to her and told her that, like, her deceased grandfather actually came up to Kristie and told her that, Kristie, you know, do not go outside that day because you're about to get kidnapped. So she literally predicted all those things, right? And Kristie actually, she was raised in a very Christian family. Her family is very, like, you know, religious and very Christian. So she thought for a very long time that she was actually cursed. She didn't really tell her friends and family that that she could kind of like see the dead people, she could speak with the dead people. She literally like just kept it to herself until she actually learned how to use her power for good. And till this point, Kristie has never communicated with the dead person asking for help, because like I said, it was always like her grandfather or grandmother literally telling her what to do, what not to do. And normally, like, the spirits that she talks with, they look like human, like they've got some sort of figure and shape and all that. But the one that she was talking to, Ashley, she was transparent. Like you could see her there and then she was not there at the same time. So she was transparent at some point. So what Kristie claimed was that Ashley actually said that she was murdered and she needed her help. Anyways, so obviously the whole thing, like the murder and all that, literally happened in Michigan while Kristie was in Detroit, right? So basically the murder took place in Columbus, Ohio, but she came all the way to Detroit, Michigan to tell Kristie that she has been murdered. And she didn't even exactly tell Kristie that she has been murdered. She just said, my name is Ashley and I need your help. That's that. What Kristie does then, she actually ends up going on the internet and she ends up searching and typing her name on the internet, and suddenly Ashley's name actually pops up and she's like, oh shit, like this person is actually true, like this person has been murdered. And then after searching for Ashley Howley's and all that, like since she found all the information, she also ends up she also ends up seeing a picture of Ashley Howley, and she's like, this is the girl that literally woke me up from a sleep. She actually goes to the investigators and the investigators are like skeptical. They're like, should I believe her? Should I not believe her? Like, I don't know, like, you know, let's just give this a try. But they were a bit skeptical. So basically what she told the investigators, that she was sleeping and then she was shaken by this girl. She needed help and that she was really stunned because she didn't really expect that to happen to her. She didn't really understand what was going on. So she kind of figured out who the spirit was. But since Kristie accurately described what Ashley's clothes looked like and what she was wearing that day, the police were actually kind of buying it, and they were like, you know what, like, let me just put you in with the family. The family was so helpless and also very hopeless as well. Like, they kind of gave up on their daughter because it's been a year, right? So they're like, you know what, we're willing to believe anything this Kristie woman says because we really want some sort of information where our daughter is. So they're like, okay, fine, yes, like Ashley is actually talking with Kristie. Like, so basically what happened here, Ashley was actually giving clues to Kristie where she was, and she was actually giving her clues and all of that. And not just that, Ashley actually wanted her body to be found, so that's why there was like multiple contact of sorry, there's something on the camera, yeah. So basically there's like multiple contact from Ashley because she actually wanted her body to be found. And not just that, yeah, Ashley also wanted her family to, like, you know, have some sort of closure, and so that she could rest in peace because she was a bit revengeful. She could not stand with the fact that her ex-boyfriend actually got away with the murder and all that. So she was a bit revengeful. Anyways, Ashley wasn't even very descriptive of where her body was. She was just giving her clues, like clues here and there. Like, it wasn't even that much. So this case kind of dragged on for a few years. So she was murdered in 2004, but this case dragged till 2008, right? So she wasn't really giving that much clue, but Ashley really did. Ashley really would actually visit Kristie here and there. Finally, Kristie finally did all her research and all that, like every clue that she gave. Basically what she found was she actually provided images that said lightly colored pine, whatever that means, and told Kristie that this is where her body could be. So basically what Ashley did, she provided images which said quote unquote, and she told Kristie this is where her body is. Following this, what Kristie did, she flew to Columbus and she met with Ashley's relative and they actually located her body. So basically what Kristie did, she flew over to Columbus to her relative and looking for the place. They were actually looking for her body, like to find where she is. And turns out that the place that Ashley has told where Kristie is turns out to be a national park. And Kristie actually came across a park ranger. Kristie explained to the park ranger what the spot looked like. So basically what Kristie did, she told the park ranger what she had seen, and she was also asking the park ranger if there's like images like that, whatever Kristie had seen on the images that were provided by Ashley. So basically what the park ranger said that there's no such place like that, the way Ashley has described. But basically what the park ranger knew, that there was no area like that was described by Ashley, but there was another spot that is exactly the way Ashley described. He led them to the spot, which was on a private property. Kristie immediately knew that this is the location where Ashley's body was buried. She contacted the police immediately and she was like, "You need to come and investigate." So basically what the police did, they actually came over with their dogs, and the dogs, honestly, they couldn't really pick up any kind of scent. Despite all that, even though the dogs couldn't really pick up the scent, what Kristie did, she kept telling the police, "Well, I'm telling you, this is where her body is, this is where she's buried, you need to search for her." Anyways, but there was a policy, if the dogs cannot pick up a scent, they cannot really help Kristie, because honestly the dogs are not picking up anything. So like, even if say Kristie's wrong, police would have to pay for the damage that they have done on a private property. And not just that, they also need to get a warrant in order to start digging. Throughout this whole time, like, basically Robert, Ashley's ex-boyfriend, would literally get into trouble over and over again with laws and all of that. He was arrested for burglary, robbery, drugs, drunk driving. He literally attempted a murder. In 2007, which is 3 years after Ashley's death, Robert was actually living with his mother. So 49-year-old Barbara Rush and her boyfriend, 43-year-old Gregory, the family was struggling a lot financially, and the couple actually had a lot of issues because they couldn't really pay for their mortgage. And Gregory, the boyfriend, the mother's boyfriend, he had problem because he couldn't really hold a job. And not just that, Barbara, the mother, she had a drinking problem, like she would drink a lot. And so they decided to actually run out the home to a family friend. The friend actually agreed to move in along with the couple. So basically the reason why Barbara had a drinking problem because of a divorce from Robert's dad. So that was a problem, and so what they decided to rent out the house to a family friend. So basically what the friend did, the family friend agreed to move into the house, which meant that Robert had to move out as well in order to make room for the friend who was actually going to move in. What Barbara and Gregory did, they rented out a room because honestly they couldn't really afford it financially. So basically one of them had to move out, so that was Robert. On the Friday after Christmas, the couple's roommate was actually very concerned because when he returned home, so basically when he came back, he hasn't heard or seen the couple in a very long time. So he was actually worried. And not just that, the family friend also noticed that his vehicle was also missing. What the family friend did is he went to the room and he found out that the doors were actually locked, and there was no way that the family friend could actually get inside their room, because he was actually very concerned because he hasn't heard from them, he hasn't spoken to them in a very long time. So what he did, he was actually very curious about why is the door locked, what is going on, I want to know what is inside that door. So basically what he did, he forced the door open, and once he did that, he was horrified because of what he saw. He saw 2 dead bodies. So what the family friend did is that he call the police immediately, and what the police actually found out that Barbara was actually strangled to death, and her boyfriend Greg was actually violently beaten to death with a shovel, and the bodies were locked in the bedroom for 2 days. So then what the police did is they actually interviewed the friends and the couple, the friends and the neighbors of what exactly happened to the couple. And not just that, the police was also looking for the person who took the family friend's vehicle and who it must have been who killed the couple. Police actually grew very suspicious because what the police did, the police did call Robert, the son, but he wouldn't even return the phone calls, neither did he even want to look at the body. So basically what the police did is that they kept calling him and they kept telling him that, hey, we need to speak to you regarding your mom's death, like it would be nice if you could call back, but there was nothing. There was like literally no sign of Robert. Like everyone was concerned, where the hell was Robert? What Robert did is, after a few days of his mother being murdered, what Robert did is he came to the media and he told the media that he last saw his mother on Christmas Day, and then after that he has no idea what happened to his mother. When he stopped by their house to give them a card, so basically what happened, Robert explained to the media that the last time he saw his mother was on Christmas Day, and not just that, he actually stopped by in his house and just to give his mother a card, a Merry Christmas card, and that day Barbara was actually drinking like a lot and she seemed very depressed. And Robert also said that the police have been calling him non-stop for days. So basically what Robert said is that his father, whose name turns out to be Robert as well, so that's Robert Sr. and Robert Jr., they both have the same name. So basically what Robert said that his father, Robert Sr., wanted Robert Jr. to return the police's call. And not just that, Robert's father actually had some sort of feeling that Robert Jr. probably had something to do with the murder. So then what happened in 2006, like a year ago, what Robert did is Robert violently grabbed, and not just that, a year prior to that, I mean last year, Robert's mother, Barbara, actually called the police to say that Robert had violently grabbed her and literally kind of forced her to stay in the house and wouldn't let her leave the house. And so she actually called the police on him. Police had actually arrested Robert for that incident, but those charges were actually dropped because Barbara actually went to the police and she was like, you know what, like that's my son, that's my boy, so let him be, let him come out of the jail, like it's fine, it's whatever, like it's okay. So it's kind of sad if you think about it, because you know, like the only reason Barbara actually wanted her son back was because that she at the end of the day, that's her son, right? Like that's the only reason why she actually went to the police, and she actually said that let him be, and after a year she ends up being dead, but we're not sure who the killer is. Not just that, eventually the police actually ends up finding the roommate's missing vehicle, which was in an abandoned parking lot, which sounds a bit familiar if you think about it, because Ashley's vehicle was in a parking lot, in an abandoned parking lot. So do you see the connection? Not just that, Robert was also, like, in case he actually failed to join like a court case or something, because he was basically drunk and he was driving and he didn't even join the courtroom. So basically what the homicides did is they kind of took that to their advantage, and they actually arrested Robert Jr. So basically what the police did is they actually took Robert under their custody, and Robert ends up confessing that he did actually murder. So after the murder, he actually fled with his mother's boyfriend truck. So 2 days later, he returned with the truck. So then he actually stole the couple's TV and DVD player, and he actually used their vacuum to clean up the crime scene. However, when it came to cleaning, it was so bad because he actually literally smeared the blood even more, and the police actually literally found the evidence right in front of their eyes. But yeah, it was just really bad. He literally used a vacuum to clean blood, like imagine. Saying that he actually strangled his mother, and then he beat the boyfriend with a shovel to death. But the detectives asked him, why did you do it? He really had no answer. He didn't really want to tell the police why he did it. He just did it because he wanted to. So obviously there's no reason of why Robert actually killed her, like his mother, the boyfriend. But if you ask me, I think the reason why he killed the mother and the boyfriend is because they kind of made Robert move out. As Like, obviously, like, you're a grown-ass man. Like, do you really expect these people to take care of you? Like, what the hell? Sorry, I'm actually getting mad about this. But, like, I know I'm not supposed to give my personal opinion here, but, like, seriously, what the hell? Anyways, after 2 days of murder, a friend of Robert, Garrett Kulish, comes forward and he said that Robert actually admitted to him that he had murdered Ashley Howley. So basically what happened, Robert actually went to Garrett and he was like, hey, I murdered Ashley, I need your help to bury her body. So but both of them, what they do is they actually take Ashley's car to bury her body and to leave her car in an abandoned parking lot. Ashley's car with Ashley's body, and what they did is they actually drove Ashley to Robert's dad's house. So basically what they did, they dug a grave and they actually put Ashley's body in there, and then they poured quick setting concrete on her body. They actually put on top of it, like, to cover the body and all that, to hide the evidence. What they did is they put dirt on top of it, like, you know, to cover the body and all that. And not just that, the sad thing is that Kristie had actually told the police that this is where Ashley's body is. And the police were actually, they were thinking about it. They were like, oh, Kristie girl, like, she was right. Kristie was actually telling the truth. This is where Ashley's body is, since the friend Garrett actually came forward and said the truth. So basically the reason why the dogs couldn't really pick up the smell was because of a cement that had actually blocked up the scent, and they couldn't really smell anything. So basically that was that, like, the dog couldn't really pick up the scent because of a cement. Ashley's body was so decomposed that a medical examiner couldn't even really tell how Ashley had passed away. Like, couldn't really tell, like, the cause of a murder, like how the murder took place. Anyways, after a few weeks of Garrett literally admitting to the police that this is how Ashley died, Garrett ends up dying by a drug overdose. All of the evidence, police were actually able to charge Robert with Ashley's murder, Barbara's murder, and Barbara's boyfriend's murder, Greg Barty. And they also charged him with abuse of corpse, aggravated robbery, and burglary, like, literally. So he was literally charged by so many crimes. So basically the reason why he actually pleaded guilty to it, because his lawyers told him that in order to, like, if he wants to live, then he needs to plead guilty to it, or he needs to go through a death sentence. So in order to avoid the death sentence, he actually pleaded guilty and said, yes, I have committed all 3 murders. Anyways, so at the jury, the judge actually told Robert, whose name is the judge, Julie Emily Lynch, what she said is, you're showing a complete lack of remorse, and I believe her cousin, you thought you got away with this for 4 years. The cycle of violence stops today, and it's going to stop in the courtroom in 7C. The fact that you did not sit through that jury testimony is the only human thing that you have done. That's what the judge said to Robert. Only an animal behaves in that manner. She then sentenced Robert to 15 years of life for Ashley's murder and 2 terms of life imprisonment for the murder of Barbara and Greg. Ashley's father was so sad that he couldn't even join the trial because of how this even took place. Not just that, Robert actually went up to Ashley's cousin and would taunt him for years, would make fun of the fact by indirectly telling him that he had actually broke the law, and not just that, he got away with Ashley's murder. Not just that, the cousin also said that Ashley lived every single day in fear. And not just that, Ashley's sister actually stands up and she told, obviously in the courtroom, she was like, she held up a picture and said, we actually got Ashley cremated because we didn't want Ashley to be buried over and over again. Not just that, Robert's father, Robert Sr., said that he hopes that the prison will actually change Robert because he just couldn't really accept the fact that his son would stoop down so low to a point where he would commit 3 murders. Robert's father said that he broke my heart too many times, but this one puts me to the edge. But even after Barbara and Robert Sr.'s divorce, they still remained friends, and Robert was actually a decent man. Like, Robert Sr. was actually a decent man. Like, he had no problems or issues with Barbara, and personally I think the reason why they got divorced is because of Barbara's drinking issue, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And Robert's father really did love Robert Jr. a lot, but he just couldn't take the fact that his son was a monster. I mean, come on, everyone's got a a breaking point at some point. Not just that, Robert's father actually helped Barbara whenever they had money problem or anything. Like, Robert's father was always there for Barbara, and he would always try his best to help her out. Anyways, after doing my research and all that, I end up finding out that Robert's got a pen pal. So basically what a pen pal is basically you can just write letters and you can send notes and all that to Robert, and Robert's got a pen pal. So what the hell, people are actually, apparently they're actually sending notes and letters to Robert. But on his side I actually ended up finding that he's got pictures of himself, and not just that, he has been posting pictures of himself, like, you know, shirtless and just posing for the camera, and it was really cringy. It was like actually really hard to even look at because he's so ugly. But yeah, overall, like, that's just all I found about Robert. Like, I think he's doing okay in prison. Yeah.